The stars looked different when Captain Jack Stone stared out of his ship's window. 3 months ago they had looked peaceful. Now they looked like the eyes of hunting wolves. "Captain, we're getting another distress signal," said Officer Tim Ross from his station. His voice was tired. They had been running for 2 weeks now, jumping from one star system to another, always one step ahead of death. Jack turned away from the window. "Which colony this time?" "New Boston. They're asking for help." Tim's hands shook as he read the message. "The aliens hit them with plasma bombs. Half the city is gone." Jack closed his eyes. New Boston had 2 million people. Had. Past tense now. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. The Defiance was a good ship, one of Earth's best destroyers, but it felt very small when you were being hunted by an army. "Of 10,000 alien warships, sir," called out Navigator Beth Miller. "We're getting a priority message from Fleet Command." "Put it through." Admiral Lisa Park's face appeared on the main screen. She looked like she had not slept in days. Dark circles under her eyes, gray hair messy, uniform wrinkled. Behind her, Jack could see the chaos of Earth's military headquarters. People running, screens flashing red, the sound of alarms. "Jack," the Admiral said, "I need you to listen carefully. We're pulling back all remaining ships to the Sol system. Admiral, if we retreat now, the colonies are lost." Her voice was flat, cold. "We've lost Mars base. We've lost the Jupiter mining stations. Titan Research Center went dark 6 hours ago." She paused. "We have maybe 400 ships left. They have over 9,000. Jack felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What are your orders, ma'am?" "Come home, Captain. We have one last card to play." The signal cut out. The bridge was silent again. 3 days earlier, the war had started with a lie. The Galactic Council had sent their message to Earth with great ceremony. Ambassador Crix of the Vorthon Empire, a tall reptilian creature with silver scales and yellow eyes, had spoken to the United Nations. "The human species has violated the sacred boundaries of space," Crix had said, his voice smooth and diplomatic. "Your ships have entered forbidden zones. Your colonies have taken worlds that belong to others. The Council has voted. War is declared." It was all lies, and everyone knew it. Humans had never crossed any boundaries. Their colonies were on empty worlds, far from alien space. But the truth did not matter. The Vorthons had made their decision, years ago, in secret meetings far from Earth. The humans were too dangerous, they had decided. Too curious. Too quick to learn and grow. Better to kill them now while they were still weak. General Vex, the Vorthon military commander, had studied human warfare for 10 years. He knew about their nuclear weapons, their kinetic guns, their simple missile systems. Primitive technology, he thought. Easy to defeat. The Vorthons had plasma cannons that could melt through any human armor. They had energy shields that could stop human missiles. They had faster ships, better engines, stronger hulls. The math was simple. 10,000 Vorthon ships against 500 human ships. It would not even be a real war. It would be an extermination. The first battle happened, near Proxima Colony. Captain Stone had been there, commanding the Defiance as part of Patrol Group 7. 20 human ships against 100 alien vessels. The Vorthons came out of hyperspace like a silver storm. Their ships were beautiful in a terrible way, smooth, curved, gleaming like polished metal. They moved in perfect formation, their plasma cannons charging with blue-white light. "All ships, attack pattern Delta," Admiral Hayes had ordered from his flagship. He was a good man, Admiral Hayes. Had been a good man. The human ships charged forward, their railguns firing metal slugs at incredible speed. A few alien ships took hits, their shields flashing. But the Vorthons had longer range. Their plasma beams reached across space like the fingers of an angry god. The human destroyer. Courage exploded first, cut in half by twin plasma streams. Then the Hope died, her hull melting like candle wax. The Victory tried to ram an alien cruiser but was vaporized before she could make contact. In 10 minutes, 19 human ships were dead. Only the Defiance escaped, her engines screaming as she jumped to hyperspace. Captain Stone had watched good friends die that day. Captain Maria Torres of the Freedom, Commander Bob Kim of the Liberty, all of them, gone in bright flashes of light. That was when he understood. This was not a war. This was a slaughter. Now, 3 days later, Jack guided his ship through the asteroid belt toward Earth. Around him, the remnants of humanity's space fleet were coming home. Damaged ships with burned hulls, their crews exhausted and afraid. "Captain," said Tim Ross, "look at this." On the main screen, a recording played. It showed General Vex speaking to his troops, his scaled face proud and confident. "The humans thought they could stand against the might of the Vorthon Empire," the alien commander said. "They thought their primitive weapons could match our advanced technology. How wrong they were. In 1 week, maybe 2, their pathetic species will be extinct. The galaxy will be better without them." Other aliens in the recording laughed. They were enjoying this. To them, killing millions of humans was just entertainment. Jack felt anger burn in his chest. Hot, pure rage. These creatures thought humans were weak. They thought humanity would just lie down and die. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Sir," Beth Miller called out, "we're approaching Earth's outer defense grid." Through the window, Jack could see home. The blue marble that had given birth to his species, surrounded by the metal rings of orbital stations and defense platforms. It looked small and fragile against the black of space. But Jack knew something the aliens did not know. Something that would change everything. Earth had secrets, dark secrets. Weapons so terrible that humanity had sworn never to use them. Ships so dangerous that their own creators feared them. The Vorthons wanted to exterminate humanity. They were about to discover that some prey, when cornered, becomes the predator. "Set course for fleet headquarters," Jack ordered. "It's time to see what Admiral Park's last card looks like." The Defiance flew toward Earth, carrying with her the hopes and rage of a species that refused to die quietly. The real war was about to begin. The elevator went deep underground. Captain Jack Stone counted the floors as they passed. Basement level 1, basement level 5, basement level 10. The numbers kept going down, deeper than he thought possible. "How far down does this go?" he asked Admiral Lisa Park. "Far enough to survive a nuclear war," she replied. Her face was grim in the elevator's dim light. "We built this place 50 years ago, back when we thought nuclear bombs were the worst thing humans could create." The elevator stopped at basement level 25. The doors opened with a soft hiss. Beyond was a corridor that stretched into darkness. The walls were thick metal, covered with warning signs in bright yellow and red. "Authorized personnel only. Radiation. Hazard. Extreme danger. No entry without level 10 clearance." Jack had level 8 clearance. He had never seen a level 10 area before. "Admiral," he said as they walked, "what exactly are we doing down here?" "Showing you why humanity will survive this war," she said, "even if we have to destroy ourselves to do it." They passed through 3 security checkpoints. Each one scanned their DNA, their retinas, their voice patterns. Armed guards in heavy armor watched them pass. These soldiers looked different from regular military, harder, colder, like they had seen things that changed them. At the 4th checkpoint, Admiral Park placed her hand on a scanner. Red light flashed across her palm. "Admiral." "Lisa Park," a computer voice said. "Confirmed, Project Reaper access granted." The final door was 3 feet thick. It opened slowly like the mouth of a sleeping giant. Beyond was a room that took Jack's breath away. The chamber was huge, bigger than a football stadium. The ceiling curved high above, lit by harsh white lights. And in the center, behind walls of thick glass, sat something that should not exist, a spaceship. But not like any ship Jack had ever seen. It was black as deep space, its hull smooth and curved like a predator's tooth. Strange lines ran across its surface, glowing with soft blue light. The ship was beautiful, but in the way a poisonous snake is beautiful, deadly, dangerous. "My God," Jack whispered. "What is that thing?" "The Harbinger," Admiral Park said. The first of the Reaper-class vessels. We built 12 of them. Jack stared at the ship. It was twice the size of his destroyer, but something about it felt wrong. Like it was not meant to exist in the same universe as normal things. Why have I never heard of these ships? He asked. Because we hoped we would never need them. The Admiral's voice was quiet. Come on, let me show you why. They walked around the observation deck. Through the glass, Jack could see technicians working on the ship. They wore heavy radiation suits and they moved carefully, like they were handling a bomb. The Reaper ships run on antimatter, Admiral Park explained. Not the safe, controlled antimatter we use in research labs. Raw antimatter, barely contained. The reactor core burns at 10 million degrees. The radiation levels would kill a normal person in seconds. Jack felt a chill. Then how does anyone crew these ships? They don't. Not for long. She stopped in front of a wall covered with photos. Hundreds of men and women in military uniforms, all smiling. These are the volunteers, the crews who will fly the Reaper ships into battle. Every one of them knows it's a one-way trip. Jack studied the faces. They looked normal, ordinary people, like him. The radiation will kill them in days, maybe weeks, Admiral Park continued. The ship's weapons drain so much power that life support fails during combat. The hull itself is made from materials that are toxic to human tissue. Operating a Reaper ship is like flying inside a nuclear bomb. Then why build them? Admiral Park pressed a button. The lights dimmed, and a holographic display appeared in the air. It showed a battle, ships fighting in space. But these ships were different. They moved wrong, fired weapons that bent light itself. During the AI war 30 years ago, we fought machines that could think faster than humans, build better than humans, fight better than humans. We were losing, badly. So our scientists asked a simple question. What if we built ships that normal, people could not use? What if we made weapons so dangerous that only desperate, dying crews could fire them? The hologram showed a black ship, just like the Harbinger, tearing through enemy forces. Its weapons did not just destroy enemy ships, they erased them, made them vanish as if they had never existed. The Reaper ships ended that war in 6 months, Admiral Park said. But the cost... She gestured to the photos on the wall. 2,000 volunteers, all dead. We swore we would never use these ships again. Jack felt sick. And now? Now we're facing extinction. The Vorthons have 10,000 ships, we have 400. In a normal fight, we lose. So we're going to fight an abnormal fight. She led him to another section of the chamber. Here, through the glass, Jack could see the ship's weapons being loaded. The technicians moved like they were handling poisonous snakes. The void cannon, Admiral Park said, pointing to a weapon that looked like a black crystal wrapped in metal coils. It fires concentrated dark matter. The beam doesn't just penetrate enemy shields, it creates holes in space itself. Anything it touches stops existing. Jack stared at the weapon. That's impossible. So was the atomic bomb once. So was faster than light travel. Humans have a talent for making the impossible into the inevitable. She pointed to another weapon. Quantum disruptor. It phases enemy ships out of normal space-time. They die in multiple dimensions at once. This is insane. Yes, it is, but it works. During the AI war, one Reaper ship could destroy 100 enemy vessels. The machines learned to run when they detected our antimatter signatures. They walked to the end of the observation deck. Here, a large window showed the ship's engine room. The reactor core glowed like a captive star, so bright it hurt to look at. The Vorthons think they're fighting humans, Admiral Park said. They're not. They're about to fight humanity's nightmares. Ships we built in our darkest moments when we realized that sometimes survival means becoming the monster. Jack watched the technicians prepare the deadly ship. Who's going to crew her? You are. Admiral Park turned to face him. I'm giving you command of the Harbinger, you and 200 other volunteers. Jack felt the world spin around him. Admiral, The Vorthons wanted to exterminate us because they thought we were weak. They're about to learn that humans are most dangerous when they have nothing left to lose. She handed him a data pad. These are the technical specifications. Study them. Learn them. In 3 days, you'll take the Harbinger into battle. Jack looked at the datapad, then at the ship beyond the glass. His ship now. His death sentence. The other Reaper ships, he asked. Being prepared. The Doomsday. The Apocalypse. The Nemesis. All 12 of them. Admiral Park's voice was steady, but Jack could see the pain in her eyes. I'm sending 12 ships and 2,400 volunteers to their deaths, but they'll take half the Vorthon fleet with them. Jack squared his shoulders. When do we begin? Now. Your crew is already assembling. Most of them are terminal patients, cancer, radiation sickness, genetic diseases. They volunteered because they're dying anyway. They want their deaths to mean something. As they walked back toward the elevator, Jack looked one more time at the Harbinger. His ship. His beautiful, terrible, impossible ship. The Vorthons thought they were hunting sheep. They were about to meet the wolves. Captain Jack Stone felt the Harbinger come alive beneath his feet. The ship vibrated with barely controlled power, like a caged animal wanting to break free. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with steady hands, even though they all knew they were dying. Reactor core at maximum, reported Chief Engineer Mike Walsh. His voice was calm, but Jack could see the radiation burns starting to appear on his hands. Antimatter containment holding. For now. Weapons systems online, called out Weapons Officer Sarah Chen. She had volunteered after learning she had 6 months to live from cancer. Now she had maybe 6 days. Void cannon charged and ready. Through the Harbinger's main window, Jack could see the asteroid belt. Floating rocks as big as cities drifted in the darkness between Mars and Jupiter. And somewhere out there, 9,000 Vorthon warships were coming to finish what they had started. Contact! Navigator Beth Miller shouted from her station. Multiple hyperspace signatures. They're coming out of jump. Space itself seemed to tear open. Flashes of silver light appeared as the Vorthon fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. 1 ship, 10 ships, 100. They kept coming, filling the space between asteroids like a metal storm. Jack had never seen so many ships in one place. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the distant sun, beautiful and terrible like sharks made of starlight. All Reaper ships, this is Harbinger. Jack spoke into his communication system. Report status. Doomsday ready. For battle, came Captain Maria Rodriguez's voice. She sounded tired but determined. My crew is, eager to get started. Apocalypse standing by, reported Captain Tom Blake. Reactor core running hot. We're ready to make them pay. One by one, the other Reaper ships checked in. 12 vessels against 9,000. The math was insane. But Jack had stopped caring about math. On the main screen, General Vex's face appeared. The Vorthon commander looked pleased with himself, his yellow eyes bright with confidence. Humans, the alien said, his voice smooth and mocking. You have fought well for primitives, but this ends now. Surrender, and we will make your deaths quick. Jack stood up from his command chair. Around him, warning lights flashed red as the ship's systems pushed beyond safe limits. The air tasted of ozone and death. General Vex, Jack said calmly, I have a message for you and your fleet. Oh? And what is that, human? Jack smiled. It was not a nice smile. Go to hell. He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Sarah, target their flagship. Full power to the void cannon. Sir, that will drain our life support for 10 minutes. Then we better make it count. Fire when ready. The Harbinger shuddered as power flowed from the reactor core to the weapons. The lights dimmed. The air recyclers stopped. In the distance, the void cannon began to glow with black light that hurt to look at. Firing, Sarah said. The beam that emerged from the Harbinger was not made of light or energy. It looked like a line drawn in space with liquid darkness. Where it touched the Vorthon flagship, reality itself seemed to break. The alien ship did not explode. It simply stopped existing. One moment it was there, a kilometer-long warship bristling with weapons. The next moment there was nothing, not even debris, just empty space and a growing sphere of absolute nothingness that consumed everything it touched. The Vorthon fleet stopped moving. Jack could imagine their crews staring in shock at the place where their flagship used to be. "Doomsday, you're up," Jack said into his communicator. Captain Rodriguez's ship moved forward like a hunting cat. Her target was a formation of 50 Vorthon cruisers. The Doomsday looked smaller than the alien ships, but what happened next proved that size did not matter. "Quantum disruptor arrays charging," Rodriguez reported, "targeting multiple enemy vessels." The Doomsday fired 6 beams of twisted light. They did not travel in straight lines like normal weapons. Instead, they curved through space, bending around asteroids, seeking their targets like living things. When the beams hit the Vorthon ships, the aliens discovered what it meant to die in multiple dimensions at once. Their vessels began to flicker, existing and not existing at the same time. The alien crews screamed as their bodies were torn apart by forces that should not exist in normal space. Some ships tried to run, others tried to fight back. It did not matter. The quantum beams found them all. "Apocalypse, Nemesis, attack pattern Gamma," Jack ordered. The 2 Reaper ships charged straight into the center of the Vorthon formation. Their hulls glowed with radiation that would cook any normal crew in seconds. But their crews were already dying, so they did not care. Captain Blake's Apocalypse opened fire with something called a reality shredder. The weapon created cracks in space itself. Enemy ships that got too close were pulled into these cracks and crushed by forces that existed outside the normal universe. The Nemesis, commanded by Captain Lisa Park's daughter Anna, used a different approach. Her ship's hull began to phase in and out of normal space. When Vorthon ships tried to hit her with plasma cannons, the beams passed right through her. But when she fired back, her weapons were very real. The battle was not like anything Jack had ever seen. Normal space combat was about formation, tactics, careful planning. This was chaos. The Reaper ships moved like demons, their impossible weapons tearing holes in reality itself. "Sir," Beth Miller called out, "the Vorthons are trying to retreat." Jack looked at the tactical display. Sure enough, the alien fleet was breaking apart. Ships were jumping to hyperspace as fast as they could charge their engines. "Oh no," Jack said quietly. "They started this. We're going to finish it." He opened a channel to all Reaper ships. "All vessels, pursuit formation, no survivors." The 12 human ships spread out like a net of death. Every time a group of Vorthon ships tried to escape, a Reaper ship was there waiting. The Harbinger caught a squadron of destroyers trying to flee toward the outer planets. Jack's void cannon erased them one by one, each shot creating a new hole in space. Captain Rodriguez pursued a group of heavy cruisers all the way to Jupiter's orbit. Her quantum disruptor arrays flickered like deadly lightning, and the alien ships died screaming across multiple realities. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the asteroid belt was full of impossible things. Spheres of nothingness, where the void cannons had fired. Cracks in space that leaked strange light. Areas where the laws of physics no longer worked properly. Of the 9,000 Vorthon ships that had entered the solar system, fewer than 300 escaped. The rest were dead, destroyed by weapons that should not exist. But the victory came, with a price. "Casualty report," Jack asked his medical officer. Dr. James Foster looked tired. Half his hair had fallen out from radiation exposure. 40% of the crew is dead. Another 30% will be dead by tomorrow. The rest of us, he shrugged. Days, maybe a week. Jack nodded. He had expected this. The Reaper ships were never meant to bring their crews home alive. "Sir?" Communications Officer Tim Ross called out. His voice was weak, but excited. "We're getting a transmission from the surviving Vorthon ships." "Put it through." General Vex appeared on the screen again, but he looked very different now. His proud, confident expression was gone. Instead, he looked terrified. "What are you?" the alien whispered. "What have you done?" Jack stood up slowly. His legs felt weak and his vision was starting to blur from radiation sickness, but his voice was strong. "We're humans," he said, "and we just taught you why you should never try to exterminate us." The transmission ended. Through the Harbinger's windows, Jack could see the surviving Vorthan ships jumping to hyperspace, running for their lives. The war was over. Humanity had won. Now all they had to do was die. Captain Jack Stone could no longer feel his hands. The radiation from the Harbinger's reactor had burned through his nervous system, leaving his fingers numb and useless. But he kept giving orders because his crew needed him to stay strong until the end. "Status report," he said, his voice hoarse from breathing air that tasted like metal and death. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Chief Engineer Mike Walsh. Half his face was covered in radiation burns, and his left eye had gone white and blind. The antimatter containment is failing. We have maybe 6 hours before the reactor goes critical." 6 hours. Jack nodded slowly. It was more time than most of his crew would live to see. Through the bridge windows, he could see the other Reaper, ships spread across the asteroid belt. The Doomsday was drifting without power, her hull cracked open like an egg. The Apocalypse was still moving, but slowly, leaving a trail of glowing gas from her damaged engines. The Nemesis was the worst. Captain Anna Park's ship was only half visible, stuck between normal space and somewhere else. Her crew had pushed their reality-bending weapons too far, and now they were paying the price. Sometimes Jack could see the ship clearly. Sometimes it looked like a ghost made of starlight. "Sir," Communications Officer Tim Ross called out. His hair had all fallen out 3 days ago and his skin looked like old paper. "Captain Rodriguez is trying to reach us." "Put her through." Captain Maria Rodriguez appeared on the main screen. She was sitting in what looked like the Doomsday's medical bay. Machines beeped around her, keeping her alive. Her face was pale, and Jack could see the dark lines under her skin where the radiation had burned her blood vessels. "Jack," she said with a weak smile. "How are you holding up?" "Better than you look," Jack replied. "What's your situation?" 17. Crew members left alive, ships dead in space. But we did it, didn't we? We stopped them. We stopped them. Jack felt a strange peace settle over him. "Any regrets?" Maria thought for a moment. "Just one. I wish I could see Earth again. See the sunrise over the mountains. We all do." Jack paused as a coughing fit took him. When he could speak again, he said, "Maria, how long do your doctors give you?" "Few hours. Maybe less." She shrugged. "What about your crew?" "Same. The medical officer says the radiation has cooked our DNA. Even if we could get to a hospital, there's nothing they could do." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, 2 dying captains who had done the impossible. "You know what's funny?" Maria said suddenly. "The Vorthans thought we were weak. They thought humans would just give up and die quietly. They learned different. They learned that humans are most dangerous when they have nothing left to lose." Maria's image flickered as her ship's power failed. "Jack, if you get the chance, tell them back on Earth that we died well." "I will." The transmission ended. Jack stared at the empty screen for a long time. "Sir," Weapons Officer Sarah Chen called out. She was lying on a stretcher now, too weak to sit at her station. "We're getting scanner readings. Something big is coming." Jack turned to look at the tactical display. His vision was blurry, but he could make out the shapes moving through space. 300 ships, heading toward the outer edge of the solar system. "The surviving Vorthans," he said. "They're running for home." "Should we pursue?" asked Navigator Beth Miller. She was one of the few crew members still at her post, though Jack could see her hands shaking from radiation sickness. Jack thought about it. The Harbinger could probably catch them. One last shot from the void cannon would erase another 50 enemy ships. But his crew was dying, and the ship was falling apart. Then he remembered something Admiral Park had told him. "We're not just fighting a war," she had said. "We're sending a message." "No," Jack said finally. "Let them go. They need to tell the galaxy what happened here." On the tactical screen, he watched the Vorthan ships jump to hyperspace, running home to spread the word about humanity's terrible weapons. "Sir, Tim Ross said from his communication station. "I'm picking up transmissions from the fleeing ships. Want to hear what they're saying?" "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled with alien voices speaking in the Vorthan language. But the ship's computer translated their words into English. "Not possible, what we saw is not possible. They built weapons that tear holes in reality itself. Lost 8,000 ships to 12 human vessels. Demons, they're not just humans. They're demons." Jack smiled grimly. "Good. Let them be afraid. Let them spread fear across the galaxy." "Another transmission coming in," Tim reported. "This one's from their fleet commander." General Vex's voice filled the bridge. The proud Vorthon warrior sounded broken, terrified. "Command, this is General Vex. The human fleet, they had ships we could not fight. Weapons that should not exist. They killed 8,000 of our best warriors with 12 vessels. 12, his voice cracked. "I recommend immediate withdrawal from all human territories. These creatures are not what we thought they were." The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, Jack heard his crew breathing slowly, painfully. They were all dying, but they had won something more than a battle. They had won respect, fear, safety for the human race. "Captain," Dr. Foster called out from his medical station, "I need to show you something." Jack walked slowly to the medical bay. His legs barely held him up, but he made it. Inside, he found something that made his heart break. Tommy Garcia, the Harbinger's youngest crew member, was lying on a medical bed. He was only 19 years old, fresh out of the academy. He had volunteered for the Reaper mission because his sister had been killed in the first Vorthan attack. The boy was dying. His skin was gray, his breathing shallow, but he was smiling. "Captain," Tommy whispered. "Did we win?" Jack knelt beside the bed. "Yes, son, we won." "Good." Tommy's eyes were bright with fever. "My sister, she would be proud. She would be very proud." Tommy closed his eyes and stopped breathing. Dr. Foster checked his pulse, then shook his head. Jack stood slowly. Around the medical bay, other crew members were dying. Good people, brave people, people who had given their lives to save humanity. "Captain," Chief Engineer Walsh called out over the intercom, "the reactor's going critical. We have 30 minutes, maybe less." 30 minutes. Jack walked back to the bridge and sat in his command chair. Through the windows he could see Earth in the distance, a blue dot against the stars. "All hands," he announced over the ship's communication system. "This is your captain. In a few minutes the Harbinger will die, and we will die with her. But we did not die for nothing. We saved our world. We saved our species. And we taught the galaxy that humans are not prey." He paused, looking around, the bridge at his dying crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for his final words. "It has been an honor to serve with all of you," Jack said. "When they write the history of this war, they will remember that 12 ships and 2,000 volunteers stood against impossible odds. They will remember that we chose to become monsters so that humanity could remain human." The ship shuddered as the reactor core began to collapse. Through the bridge speakers, Jack could hear similar announcements from the other Reaper ships. Captain Blake on the Apocalypse, Captain Davis on the Ragnarok, all of them saying goodbye. "Reactor core breach. In 10 seconds, Walsh reported calmly. Jack closed his eyes and thought about Earth, about children playing in parks, about families eating dinner together, about all the people who would live because he and his crew had chosen to die. 5 seconds, Walsh said. "It was worth it," Jack whispered. The Harbinger became a new star in the asteroid belt, burning bright and beautiful for just a moment. Then darkness. Then silence. But across the galaxy, the story of humanity's terrible ships would spread, and no alien race would ever again think that humans were easy prey. The Galactic Council chamber had been silent for 10 minutes. Representatives from 100 different worlds sat in their floating seats, staring at the holographic display in the center of the room. The display showed the asteroid belt around, Earth's sun, where 12 new stars had briefly burned and died. Ambassador Crix of the Vorthan Empire stood at the speaker's podium. His silver scales, once bright with pride, now looked dull and gray. His yellow eyes, which had once burned with confidence, now darted nervously around the chamber. "Honored delegates," Crix began, his voice shaking, "I must report that the human extermination campaign has failed." A murmur ran through the chamber. The ambassador from the Zephyrian Federation, a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms, leaned forward in his seat. "Failed?" Ambassador Lux asked. "How is that possible? Your report said the humans had only primitive weapons." Crix's throat made a clicking sound that, in Vorthon culture, meant deep fear. "The reports were wrong. The humans had weapons we did not know about, ships that should not exist." The holographic display changed, showing the battle in the asteroid belt. The assembled delegates watched in growing horror as they saw what the human Reaper ships had done. Ships vanishing into holes in space. Enemy vessels dying across multiple dimensions. Reality itself being torn apart by impossible weapons. 9,000 ships, Crix continued. The finest fleet in Vorthon history, reduced to 300 survivors by 12 human vessels. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Representatives spoke in dozens of different languages, but the meaning was the same in all of them. Fear. Ambassador Thane, of the Crystalline Confederation, whose people were made of living mineral, raised one glowing hand for silence. "Ambassador Crix, are you telling this council that humans built weapons capable of destroying reality itself?" "Yes." Crix's voice was barely a whisper. "They called them Reaper ships. Each one was powered by barely controlled antimatter. Each one carried weapons that could tear holes in space-time. And each one was crewed by humans who knew they would die just by operating their own ship." This last detail sent a chill through the chamber. Many species in the galaxy were warlike. Many had powerful weapons, but none had ever built ships that killed their own crews just by turning them on. Ambassador Vera of the Peaceful Gardens Coalition, whose plant-like people had never known war, spoke in a voice like rustling leaves. "Why would any species build such things?" General Vex's image appeared on the holographic display. The Vorthon military commander looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 days. His once proud bearing was gone, replaced by the nervous movements of someone who had seen too much death. "I fought against these humans," Vex said to the council. "I watched their ships tear my fleet apart, but that is not what terrifies me." He paused, his yellow eyes haunted. "What terrifies me is that they built these weapons in peacetime. They created them hoping never to use them. But when we forced them to choose between extinction and becoming monsters, they chose to become monsters." The display showed footage from inside a human ship. The delegates watched as Captain Jackstone, his face burned by radiation, calmly gave orders while his crew died around him. They saw young humans, barely adults, operating weapons that were killing them with every shot fired. "They knew they would die," Vex continued. "Every single human on those ships knew that using their weapons meant death. And they did it anyway. They sacrificed themselves to save their species." Ambassador Drake of the Machine Collective, whose robotic body hummed with electronic thought, processed this information with mechanical precision. "Fascinating. Most species, when faced with extinction, surrender or flee. Humans chose mutual destruction." "Not mutual," corrected Ambassador Crix. "They chose our destruction. They were willing to die to kill us. That makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy." The council chamber fell silent again. Each delegate was thinking the same thing. What would happen if their own worlds threatened humanity? Ambassador Lux of the Zephyrian Federation spoke first. "I move that we immediately grant humans protected status under galactic law. No member species may attack human territory without council approval." "Seconded," said Ambassador Thane quickly. "Thirded," added Ambassador Vera, her plant-like voice trembling. One by one, every delegate in the chamber voted yes. Even the warlike species, the ones who had supported the Vorthon attack, now wanted nothing to do with humanity. The vote was unanimous. 3 months later on Earth, Admiral Lisa Park stood in the memorial garden. Around her, 2004. 100 trees grew in perfect rows. Each tree represented one of the volunteers who had died aboard the Reaper ships. Each one had a small plaque with a name and a simple message. They died so humanity could live. Admiral Park was old now. The stress of the war had aged her, turned her hair completely white, carved deep lines in her face. But she stood straight. As she read the names of the dead, Captain Jackstone, Captain Maria Rodriguez, Captain Tom Blake, Captain Anna Park, her own daughter, young Tommy Garcia, who had been 19 years old, Dr. James Foster, who had volunteered even though he had a wife and 3 children, all of them gone, all of them heroes. "Admiral," said a voice behind her. She turned to see President Williams, the leader of Earth's government. He was carrying a data pad and looked excited. "The reports are coming in from across the galaxy," the president said. 3 species have requested trade agreements with us. 5 others want to form defensive alliances. The Altarian Empire is offering us access to their best technology. Admiral Park nodded slowly. "And the Vorthons?" "Complete withdrawal from the border sectors. They've declared our space off limits to all their ships. Some of their planets are asking to join our protection network." "Protection network?" President Williams smiled. "Half the galaxy thinks we have more Reaper ships hidden, somewhere. They want to be our friends, not our enemies." Admiral Park looked back at the memorial trees. "Do we have more Reaper ships?" "No. We destroyed all the remaining ones after the war. Too dangerous to keep around." The president paused. "But we don't have to tell anyone that." A soft wind blew through the memorial garden, making the tree leaves whisper like voices from the past. Admiral Park listened to them and smiled sadly. "The irony is perfect," she said. "We built the most terrible weapons in galactic history, used them once, and then destroyed them. Now everyone thinks we're the deadliest species in the universe. Aren't we?" Admiral Park thought about that question. About humans who would crew ships that killed them. About species that would rather die than surrender. About a race that turned themselves into monsters to protect what they loved. "Yes," she said, finally. "I think we are." On the far side of the galaxy, in the great archives of the Eternal Library, an ancient keeper wrote the final entry in the file marked Human Species Threat Assessment. The entry was short. Humans are a species that builds weapons capable of destroying reality itself, then crews those weapons with volunteers who know they will die. When threatened with extinction, they do not surrender. They do not flee. They choose to drag their enemies into death with them. Recommendation: never threaten humanity. They have proven they would rather burn the universe down than lose. The keeper sealed the file and marked it with the highest warning level in the galactic database. Red symbols that meant, approach with extreme caution. Then the keeper went to spread the word to every species in the galaxy. The message was simple. Humans were not prey, they were predators. And the smartest thing any species could do was leave them alone. In the memorial garden on Earth, the wind continued to blow through the trees. And somewhere among those whispers, if you listened carefully, you could hear the voices of 2,400 heroes saying the same thing they had said in life. We did what we had to do. We protected what we loved, and we would do it again. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not a species to be exterminated. They were a species to be respected, feared, and left in peace. The war was over, and humanity had won something more valuable than victory. They had won their place in a universe that would never again underestimate them. Admiral Vex stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking out at the endless stars. His 12-foot frame cast a long shadow across the metal floor. His thick, armored skin gleamed under the bright lights. Like all Titans, he was built for war, strong enough to crush steel with his bare hands, tough enough to survive in space without a suit. "Admiral," called his science officer, Dr. Cole, "we have found something strange." Vex turned his large head toward the smaller alien. Dr. Cole was nervous, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "What is it?" Vex asked in his deep voice. "A ship, sir. Dead in the water, it's floating in the void sector." The void sector was empty space between star systems. Nothing lived there. Nothing should be there. Vex walked to the main screen and looked at the image. The ship was small compared to his fleet. It looked old and beaten up. The metal hull was dark and full of holes. "Scan it," Vex ordered. Captain Rex, his best warrior, stepped forward. Rex was even bigger than most Titans, with scars covering his arms from 100 battles. "Sir, the ship looks like junk, probably from some dead race we destroyed years ago." Dr. Cole worked at his computer. His hands shook a little as he read the results. "Admiral, this is strange. The ship shows signs of heavy fighting. But look at these weapon marks." The screen showed close-up pictures of the ship's hull. Long, deep cuts ran along the sides. Burn marks from energy weapons covered the surface. But something was wrong with the damage. "These weapon marks," Dr. Cole continued. "They're made by guns that don't exist in our database, and these cuts, and they're too deep. Nothing should be able to cut through metal like this." Vex studied the images. In his 300 years of life, he had conquered 60 star systems. He had seen every type of weapon in the galaxy, but these marks were different. "What about life signs?" he asked. "None, sir. The ship is completely dead. But—" Dr. Cole paused. "There's an emergency beacon. It's very weak, but it's still working." "What language?" "Unknown, sir. I've never seen these symbols before." Captain Rex laughed, a sound like rocks falling. "Probably some primitive race that got wiped out. We should just blast it and move on." But Admiral Vex was curious. He had not become the leader of the Titan fleet by ignoring mysteries. "No. We board it. I want to know what happened here." 20 minutes later, a boarding party suited up in the hangar bay. Captain Rex led 12 of the strongest Titan warriors. Each one wore heavy armor and carried weapons that could destroy a building. They looked like moving mountains as they walked to their shuttle. "Remember," Vex told them over the radio, "we're looking for information. Don't destroy everything you touch." The shuttle flew across the dark space between the ships. As they got closer, the mysterious vessel looked even more damaged. Hull plates were missing. Windows were cracked or blown out completely. Whatever had happened here, it had been violent. "Getting closer to the airlock," Rex reported. "The ship looks like it went through a war." The shuttle connected to the dead ship with a loud clang. Rex and his team cut through the airlock door with laser torches. The metal was thick, thicker than it should be for such a small ship. Inside, emergency lighting cast red shadows on the walls. The air was thin but breathable. Rex's team moved carefully through the narrow corridors. Everything was built for smaller creatures. The Titans had to duck their heads and squeeze their shoulders through doorways. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered one warrior. They found the first evidence of fighting near what looked like the main corridor. Blast marks covered the walls. Metal barriers had been set up like a fortress. Someone had made a desperate last stand here. "Sir," called another warrior from ahead, "you need to see this." Rex moved forward and stopped. On the wall in front of him were deep scratches in the metal. They looked like claw marks, but they were huge, bigger than anything Rex had ever seen. More importantly, they had cut through Titan-grade armor plating like it was soft wood. "What could do this?" Rex whispered. His team spread out looking for more clues. They found empty weapon cases, medical supplies scattered on the floor, and small pieces of equipment they didn't recognize. Everything was built for creatures about 6 feet tall, much smaller than Titans. In the ship's bridge, they found what they were looking for. The main computer was still working, running on backup power. Strange symbols covered the screens. But on one wall, painted in what looked like dried blood, were more symbols. Rex took pictures of everything. "Admiral," he called over the radio, "we found the ship's name. At least we think we did." "What is it?" Rex looked at the symbols carved into a metal plate near the captain's chair. The letters were in a style he had never seen before. "UNS Defiance. Mean anything to you?" Back on the Titan flagship, Dr. Cole was already working on the translation. "Admiral, I'm running the symbols through our database. So far, nothing matches." Admiral Vex studied the pictures Rex had sent. The claw marks bothered him most. In all, His years of war, he had never seen damage like that. What kind of creature could cut through Titan armor? And where was it now? "Sir," Dr. Cole said suddenly, "I'm picking up something on long-range sensors." "What?" "Ships. 3 of them. Coming. This way fast." Vex looked at the tactical display. 3 small dots were approaching from the edge of the system. They moved in a tight formation like hunters. "How long until they get here?" 20 minutes, sir." Vex made a decision. "Rex, get your team back here now. We might have company." As the Titan warriors hurried back to their shuttle, none of them noticed the small camera that watched them leave. Deep inside the dead ship, a computer system that had been pretending to sleep for months quietly activated. It sent a single short message into space. The message was simple. "Package delivered. Targets acquired. Begin Phase 2. Far away, on Nade." The approaching ships. Commander Blake smiled as he read the message. The trap was working perfectly. The Titans had found the bait, just as planned. Now it was time to teach the galaxy's strongest species a lesson they would never forget. The human fleet increased speed, rushing toward their first real test against the beings who thought they ruled the galaxy. Behind them, dozens more human ships waited in the darkness, ready to show the Titans what real strength looked like. The war that would change everything was about to begin. Captain Rex and his team rushed back to the Titan flagship as fast as their shuttle could fly. Behind them, the mysterious dead ship floated in space like a dark secret. Rex couldn't stop thinking about those claw marks in the metal. What kind of creature could cut through Titan armor like soft butter? "Get me those computer files decoded now," Admiral Vex ordered Dr. Cole as soon as the boarding party returned. "I want to know everything about that ship." Dr. Cole's 4 eyes were wide with worry as he worked at his computer station. His fingers moved quickly over the controls, trying to break the alien code. "Sir, this language is completely unknown, but I'm finding some patterns. Give me a few more minutes." On the main screen, the 3 approaching ships grew larger. They were sleek and angular like metal sharks swimming through space. Unlike the boxy, powerful design of Titan warships, these vessels looked built for speed and precision. "Distance?" Vex asked. 15 minutes and closing fast," reported the navigation officer. "Sir, they're moving faster than our records show is possible for ships that size." Vex studied the tactical display. The unknown ships flew in perfect formation, each one exactly where it should be. Whoever was piloting them knew what they were doing. "Admiral," Dr. Cole shouted suddenly, "I've broken part of the code. You need to see this." The main screen changed to show data from the dead ship's computer. Even though most of it was still in alien symbols, some parts had been translated. What they saw made every Titan on the Guy bridge go quiet. "These are battle plans," Dr. Cole whispered. "Detailed attack strategies against Titan ships. Look at this section. It shows exactly where to hit our shields to make them fail. And here, weapon configurations designed specifically to pierce Titan armor." Admiral Vex felt something he had not experienced in centuries, real fear. "How is that possible? Our military secrets are the most protected information in the galaxy." "There's more, sir." Dr. Cole's voice was shaking now. "Medical files. Complete biological data on Titan physiology, blood chemistry, bone density, nerve response times, everything. This data is more detailed than our own military medical records. Captain." Rex stepped forward, his massive fists clenched. "Impossible. No species has ever gotten this close to our secrets." 10 minutes until contact," the navigation officer announced. Admiral Vex made a decision. He activated the ship's communication system and sent a message toward the approaching vessels. "Unknown ships, this is Admiral Vex of the Titan Imperial Fleet. You are entering a restricted military zone. Identify yourselves immediately or face the consequences." For a moment, there was only silence. Then the speakers crackled to life with a voice that spoke perfect Titan language, but with a strange accent that sounded almost amused. "This is Commander Blake of the Human Colonial Navy. You are currently in possession of our property. Return our ship, and we might consider letting you leave this system intact." The entire bridge erupted in laughter. Even Dr. Cole's worried expression changed to one of disbelief. Captain Rex laughed so hard his armor rattled. Humans? Rex gasped between laughs. The small pink things from that backward system? Admiral Vex had heard of humans before. According to the Galactic Database, they were a recently discovered species from a small blue planet. Average height of 6 feet, no natural weapons, fragile bone structure, and primitive technology. They had barely learned to travel between stars when the Titans first cataloged them. Human, Vex spoke into the communicator, trying to control his amusement. You are speaking to the Admiral of the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. We are the Titans. We have conquered 80% of known space. Your little ships are no match for our dreadnoughts. Is that so? Commander Blake's voice came back, still sounding amused. Tell me, Admiral, how many of your ships have survived 300 years of constant warfare? Warfare? Vex was confused. The galaxy has been at peace under Titan rule for 2 centuries. Not our galaxy, Blake replied. We've been fighting since before you knew we existed. Every ship in my fleet has been through battles that would turn your dreadnoughts into scrap metal. Every human aboard has lived through wars you can't imagine. Captain Rex stepped up to the communication panel. Enough talk, human. You want your junk ship back? Come and take it. 5 minutes to contact, the navigation officer reported. Doctor, Call was still working on the alien files when something made him gasp. Admiral, I've found something else. These aren't just battle plans, they're predictions. Look at this timestamp. These files were created 3 months ago, but they describe this exact encounter. They knew we would find their ship. They knew we would board it. Admiral Vex felt ice in his veins. What are you saying? I think this was all planned. The derelict ship, us finding it, even this conversation. It's all here in their files. On the screen, the 3 human ships had formed into an attack pattern. They moved with liquid grace, each ship flowing into position like they were dancing, instead of preparing for war. Human ships, this is your final warning, Vex transmitted. Retreat now or be destroyed. You are outnumbered 50-3. Your small vessels cannot possibly damage our fleet. Commander Blake's response came back. Immediately. Outnumbered? Admiral, you're looking at this all wrong. It's not 50 against 3. It's 50 of your ships against 3 of ours that have never lost a battle. 2 minutes to weapons range, the tactical officer reported. Admiral Vex looked around his bridge. Every station was manned by the best warriors in the Titan fleet. His flagship alone carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. Behind him, 49 other Titan warships waited in formation. They had never been defeated in battle. But something was wrong. The human ships weren't acting like any enemy he had ever faced. Instead of spreading out or trying to run, they were moving closer together, like they were getting ready to do something impossible. Admiral, Dr. Cole called out urgently. I found something else in their files. A tactical manual. Chapter 7. How to fight enemies bigger than you. Sir, they have specific strategies for fighting larger opponents. This whole manual is about winning battles when you're outnumbered and outgunned. Weapons range in 30 seconds, the tactical officer announced. Admiral Vex stared at the screen. The 3 small human ships looked like insects compared to his massive fleet. But insects, he remembered from his studies of conquered worlds, sometimes had the deadliest bites. All ships, battle stations, he commanded. Let's show these humans why we rule the galaxy. But even as he gave the order, Admiral Vex couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to learn something he really didn't want to know. On the human flagship, Commander Blake looked at his tactical display and smiled. Everything was going according to plan. The Titans had taken the bait perfectly. Now it was time to teach the galaxy's so-called strongest species their first lesson in humility. All ships prepare to engage, Blake ordered. Remember, we're not here to destroy them, we're here to educate them, make every shot count. The first battle between humans and Titans was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. 50 Titan warships opened fire at the same time. The space between the fleets lit up like a star going nova. Massive energy beams, plasma cannons and missile swarms all aimed at the 3 small human ships. It was enough firepower to destroy a moon. But when the light faded, all 3 human ships were still there. Impossible, Captain Rex whispered. The human ships had moved. Not just moved, they had danced. While the Titan weapons fired in straight lines, the human vessels had twisted and spun through space like they were alive. They used the gravity of nearby asteroids to change direction. They flew behind debris to hide. They moved in ways that made no sense. How did they do that? Dr. Cole asked, staring at his instruments. All ships, adjust targeting, Admiral Vex ordered. Lock onto their new positions. But the human ships weren't staying still. They flew in patterns that hurt to watch. One moment they were spread apart. The next they were flying so close together, they looked like one ship. Then they would split. Again, an attack from 3 different directions. Admiral, the tactical officer called out, they're targeting our shield generators. What? How do they know where those are? Before Vex could get an answer, the human ships opened fire. Their weapons weren't the biggest or most powerful in the galaxy, but they were precise. Each shot hit exactly where it was supposed to. The first Titan ship lost its shields. The second lost its main guns. The third started spinning out of control as its engines died. Return fire. All ships, return fire, Vex screamed. The Titan fleet tried to hit the human ships again. But it was like trying to swat flies with hammers. The humans were too fast, too smart, and they seemed to know exactly what the Titans would do before they did it. Captain Rex watched in growing horror as his mighty fleet fell apart. Sir, they're not fighting like any species I've ever seen. They're not trying to overpower us. They're hunting us. It was true. The human ships moved like predators. They would attack one Titan ship until it was damaged, then move to the next. They never stayed in one place long enough to be hit. They used every piece of space junk, every asteroid, every shadow as cover. Admiral! Dr. Cole shouted over the noise of battle. I'm reading massive power spikes from the derelict ship. On the screen, the dead human ship that had started this whole mess was coming alive. Lights flickered on across its hull. Engines that had been cold for months roared to life. Weapon systems that had looked broken and useless started to power up. The boarding party, Admiral Vex realized with horror. Rex, get your men out of there now. But it was too late. Inside the human ship, Captain Rex's warriors were trapped. The moment the ship powered up, emergency bulkheads had slammed shut. The Titans found themselves locked in small rooms with no way out. Sir, Rex's voice came over the radio, filled with panic. The ship. It's alive. The computer is talking to us. What's it saying? I don't know. It's in that alien language. Back on Dr. Cole's station, the translation program was finally working. The computer's voice echoed through the Titan flagship as he decoded it. Quarantine protocol activated. Hostile borders detected. Beginning defensive procedures. Defensive procedures? Admiral Vex asked. What does that mean? His answer came from Commander Blake's voice over the communication channel. It means, Admiral, that your warriors are about to learn why human ships are dangerous. It's not the ship itself. It's what we put inside it. On the human derelict, Captain Rex and his men found themselves in a nightmare. The ship's computer had turned everything into a weapon. Air vents started spraying sleeping gas. Floors became electrified. Wall panels shot out nets to trap anyone who moved too fast. This is impossible, Rex shouted into his radio. Civilian ships don't have this kind of defensive system. That's where you're wrong, Commander Blake replied, his voice now coming through the derelict ship's speakers. There are no civilian ships in the human fleet. Every vessel is built to fight. Every human aboard is trained to survive. We learned long ago that in space, everything tries to kill you, so we made everything killable back. Rex tried to break down a door with his massive strength. The metal bent but didn't break. When he hit it again, electricity shot through his armor, dropping him to his knees. Rex! Admiral Vex called over the radio. Report! Sir, Rex gasped. This ship is fighting us, not the crew, the ship itself, the walls, the floors, even the air. Everything is a weapon. Outside, the battle continued. But it wasn't really a battle anymore. It was a lesson. The 3 human ships had disabled 15 Titan vessels without destroying a single one. They targeted engines, weapons, and life support, but never the parts that would kill the crews. Admiral, the tactical officer reported, we've lost 30% of our firepower, but the strange thing is, they could have destroyed us all by now. They're holding back. Admiral Vex was beginning to understand something terrible. The humans weren't trying to win a battle, they were trying to teach him something. Commander Blake, he called over the radio. What do you want? I want you to listen, Admiral. Your species has conquered most of the galaxy through superior strength and firepower. You've never had to fight for your survival. But we have. For 300 years we fought wars that made your worst battles look like children's games. On the screen, the human ships reformed into a new pattern. They weren't attacking anymore. They were just waiting. Blake continued. Every human ship has survived fights that would have destroyed your dreadnoughts. Every human crew has lived through disasters that would have killed your strongest warriors. We don't fight to conquer, Admiral. We fight to survive. And that makes us very, very dangerous. Inside the derelict ship, Rex and his men had stopped trying to break out. The ship's defenses had adapted to everything they tried. When they used brute force, the ship used electricity. When they tried to cut through walls, the ship released gas that made them dizzy. When they tried to think their way out, the ship seemed to read their minds and close off every escape route. Sir, Rex reported weakly. I think I understand now. This isn't just a ship, it's a trap that thinks. Dr. Cole was studying the tactical data from the battle when something made him go pale. Admiral, I've been analyzing their attack patterns. These humans, they know our technology better than we do. Every shot they fired hit a critical system. They know exactly how our ships work, how our weapons function, even how we think. Admiral Vex looked at his damaged fleet. Most of his ships were disabled but not destroyed. His warriors were alive but defeated. And somewhere out there, only 3 small human ships had done this to the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Commander Blake, he said quietly into the radio, you've made your point. What happens now? Blake's voice came back, and for the first time it wasn't amused. It was serious. Now, Admiral, you learn the most important lesson of all. Being the strongest doesn't mean anything if you can't adapt when everything goes wrong. Your species built an empire on power. We built our survival on intelligence. The galaxy is about to change, and you can either learn from us or be left behind. The first battle between humans and Titans was over. But the real war, the war for the future of the galaxy, was just beginning. Captain Rex sat on the floor of the human ship, breathing heavily. His massive armor was scratched and dented from trying to break free. Around him, his 11 warriors looked just as beaten. The ship had stopped attacking them, but they were still trapped. Rex, Admiral Vex's voice crackled through the radio. Are you alive? Yes, sir, Rex replied. But this ship? It's like nothing we've ever seen. It fought us without any crew. The walls themselves were weapons. Dr. Cole had been studying the ship's systems from his position on the Titan flagship. Captain, I think I understand what happened. This isn't just a warship. It's a survival machine. Every system has 3 backup systems. Every room can become a fortress. Every piece of equipment can be turned into a weapon. Rex looked around the small room where he was trapped. Now that the fighting had stopped, he could see things more clearly. The walls weren't just metal, they were covered with repair patches, jury-rigged connections, and makeshift modifications. This ship had been rebuilt many times. Sir, Rex said into his radio, I'm looking at the ship's internal structure. This vessel has been repaired using parts from dozens of different technologies. Some of this equipment, I don't even recognize it. What do you mean? Admiral Vex asked. They've taken pieces from destroyed ships and made them work together. Titan power cores connected to alien weapon systems. Engine parts from 5 different species all working as one unit. Sir, whoever built this ship didn't just repair it. They improved it using salvage technology. On the main screen of his ship, Rex found something that made his blood run cold. It was a video log from the ship's final battle. As he watched, he began to understand what humans really were. The video showed the ship's crew during their last fight. Rex counted only 20 humans aboard, tiny creatures compared to Titans, but as he watched them work, he realized they were not like any species he had ever encountered. When the ship's main weapon system failed, instead of giving up, the humans rerouted power from life support to make it work. When the engine was damaged, they used medical equipment to create replacement parts. When enemies boarded their ship, they didn't just fight them, they turned their own ship into a maze of traps and weapons. "Admiral," Rex whispered into his radio, "you need to see this. I'm sending you a video file." The recording showed a human female, barely 5 feet tall and bleeding from multiple wounds. She was surrounded by 8 alien warriors, each one twice her size. Instead of surrendering, she used her knowledge of the ship's systems to create weapons from medical supplies. She turned the lights off and on to confuse her enemies. She used the ship's gravity controls to throw them around like toys. She held them off for 40 minutes, Rex reported, his voice full of amazement. 1 small injured human against 8 trained warriors, and she won. Admiral Vex watched the video on his bridge. Around him, his officers were silent. They were seeing something that challenged everything they believed about strength and power. "How is this possible?" Captain Rex asked over the radio. Commander Blake's voice answered him, coming through the ship's communication system. "Because, Captain, your species has never had to fight for survival. You conquered weak worlds and defeated enemies through superior firepower. But we had to fight for everything." The communication screen activated, showing Blake's face for the first time. He was a human male, average height, with gray hair and tired eyes. He looked nothing like a warrior who could defeat the galaxy's strongest species. "For 300 years, Blake continued, humanity fought wars on every front. We fought alien invasions, plague outbreaks, civil wars, and natural disasters. We didn't just survive. We learned to thrive in chaos. Every human ship is designed to operate independently for years. Every human is trained in multiple skills: soldier, engineer, medic, pilot." Dr. Cole had been analyzing the data from the battle. "Commander Blake, your ships moved in ways that shouldn't be possible. Your weapons hit targets with impossible accuracy." "How?" Blake smiled sadly. "Because we've been fighting enemies like you for centuries. Big, powerful, confident enemies who thought their strength made them unbeatable. We learned that the best way to defeat a stronger opponent is to know them better than they know themselves." On his workstation, Dr. Cole pulled up more translated files from the human ship. What he found made him gasp. "Admiral, these files contain tactical analysis of over 100 different alien species. Battle strategies, weapon specifications, biological weaknesses. They have detailed plans for fighting every major race in the galaxy. Including us," Admiral Vex said quietly. "Especially you," Blake confirmed. "We've been watching the Titans for 50 years. We know how you fight, how you think, what makes you confident and what makes you afraid. This battle wasn't a surprise encounter, Admiral. It was a carefully planned lesson." Captain Rex was still trapped on the human ship, but now he was studying it instead of trying to escape. Every surface told a story of survival. Scorch marks from energy weapons that had been repaired and reinforced. Hull breaches that had been patched with metal from destroyed enemy ships. Even the air recycling system had been rebuilt, using parts from a dozen different technologies. "This ship has been through hell," Rex reported. "But instead of being destroyed, it got stronger. Every time it was damaged, the crew found a way to make it better. That's the human way," Blake explained. "We don't just survive disasters, we learn from them. Every battle teaches us something new. Every defeat makes us smarter. Every victory shows us a better way to fight." Admiral Vex looked at his damaged fleet. 15 ships disabled, dozens of systems offline, hundreds of warriors injured. But none of them were dead. The humans could have destroyed his entire fleet, but they had chosen not to. "Why?" he asked Blake. "Why didn't you destroy us?" "Because, Admiral, we're not conquerors, we're survivors. And survivors understand that sometimes the best victory is the one where nobody has to die." On the human ship, Captain Rex found the ship's medical bay. Inside were records of treatments for diseases he had never heard of, injuries from weapons that didn't exist in Titan databases, and surgical procedures for repairing damage from environments that would kill most species. Instantly. "Sir," Rex called over the radio, "I found their medical records, these humans. They've survived things that would kill us. Radiation that would melt our armor. Diseases that attack the nervous system. Injuries that should be fatal." "How?" Dr. Cole asked. Blake answered, "Because we had to. When your homeworld is attacked every few years, when your colonies are constantly under threat, when your very existence depends on being tougher than everything trying to kill you, you either adapt or you die. We chose to adapt." The video logs showed more evidence of human ingenuity. When their weapons ran out of ammunition, they made new bullets from scrap metal. When their food supplies were destroyed, they grew plants in their ship's waste recycling system. When their computer systems were damaged, they rewrote the software using equipment meant for completely different purposes. Every human learns. "To do this?" Admiral Vex asked. "Every human has to," Blake replied. "In our space, the universe doesn't care how strong you are. It only cares whether you're smart enough to stay alive." Captain Rex finally understood. The humans weren't stronger than Titans. They weren't more advanced. They weren't more numerous. But they had something the Titans had never needed: the absolute refusal to give up, combined with the intelligence to turn every disadvantage into an advantage. "Commander Blake," Admiral Vex said slowly, "what do you want from us?" Blake's expression grew serious. "We want you to understand, Admiral, that the galaxy is about to face challenges that can't be solved with brute force. There are threats coming that will require every species to work together. You can either learn to adapt, or watch your empire crumble when the real war begins." The lesson was complete, but the test was just beginning. The human ship's airlock opened with a soft hiss. Admiral Vex stepped inside, ducking his massive frame through the doorway built for smaller beings. Commander Blake stood waiting for him in the narrow corridor, looking tiny compared to the 12-foot. "Titan Admiral, welcome aboard the UNS Defiance," Blake said simply. Vex looked around the cramped interior. Every surface was covered with equipment, spare parts, and repair patches. The ship hummed with life, not the quiet efficiency of Titan vessels, but the busy noise of a machine that was constantly being improved and maintained. "Your ship is—" Vex paused, searching for the right words. "Different." Blake smiled. "Follow me. Let me show you what a human ship really is." They walked through corridors that were half the width of Titan standard. Emergency equipment hung from every wall. Repair tools were built into the floor panels. Even the lighting system had backup power sources running through the walls. "This ship is 150 years old," Blake explained as they walked. "It has been destroyed and rebuilt 17 times. Every time we thought it was finished, the crew found a way to bring it back." They entered what Blake called the engineering section. To Admiral Vex, it looked like controlled chaos. Engines from different species had been connected together with cables and pipes that seemed to grow like metal vines. Nothing matched, but everything worked. "How?" Vex asked, staring at the impossible machine. "Necessity," Blake replied. "When your original engine dies in the middle of a battle, you use whatever you can find to make a new one. When that breaks, you improve it. When the improvement fails, you make it better. After a century of this, you end up with something that shouldn't work, but does." A young human female approached them. She was even smaller than Blake, barely reaching Vex's waist. Her hands were dirty with engine oil and her clothes were covered in repair patches. "Admiral Vex," Blake said. "Meet Chief Engineer Lisa. She's 25 years old and she's rebuilt this ship's engines 4 times. Lisa looked up at the massive Titan without fear. "Admiral, your ships are impressive, but they're built to work in perfect conditions." "Our ships are built to work when everything goes wrong." She led them to a workstation covered with pieces of Titan technology. Vex recognized parts from his own ships, weapons components, shield generators, computer systems. "We've been studying your technology for decades," Lisa explained. Not to steal it, but to understand it. Every piece of equipment has strengths and weaknesses. When we know both, we can defeat the strengths and exploit the weaknesses. Admiral Vex felt humbled. His species had ruled the galaxy through superior technology and overwhelming force. But these humans had defeated him using his own technology against him. Blake led him to the ship's command center. Captain Rex was there, no longer trapped but sitting in a chair designed for humans. He looked uncomfortable but unharmed. "Rex," Admiral Vex said, "are you well?" "I am, sir," Rex replied. "But I've learned things that change everything." The command center was tiny compared to a Titan bridge. But every station was manned by humans who seemed to know their jobs perfectly. They worked together like parts of a single machine, each person anticipating what the others needed. "This is how we fight," Blake explained. "Not as individuals showing off our strength, but as a team where everyone's skills matter. Your warriors are powerful alone. Our crews are unstoppable together." On the main screen, they showed Admiral Vex footage from the battle, but this time he saw it from the human perspective. Their ships had moved in perfect coordination, each pilot knowing exactly what the others would do. When one ship was damaged, the other two immediately adjusted their tactics to protect it. "Your species fights like hunters," Blake said. "You overpower your prey through superior force. We fight like survivors. We adapt, we improvise, and we never give up." Dr. Cole's voice came over the communication system. "Admiral, you need to hear this. I finished translating the human ship's complete database." Blake nodded. "Show him everything, Dr. Cole." The screen filled with information that made Admiral Vex's blood run cold. Star charts showing threats from beyond the galaxy. Records of contact with hostile species that made the Titans look weak. Military reports describing weapons that could destroy entire star systems. "What is this?" Vex whispered. "The real war," Blake replied seriously. "Admiral, your species has been fighting minor conflicts in one small part of the galaxy. Out there in the darkness between galaxies, there are threats that make our little battle look like children playing with toys." The data showed massive alien fleets approaching from deep space. Weapons that could crack planets in half. Ships the size of moons carrying armies that numbered in the billions. "We've been preparing for this for 2 centuries, Blake continued. "Not just humans, but dozens of other species you've never heard of. We've been building alliances, sharing technology, and learning how to fight enemies that can't be defeated by strength alone." Admiral Vex stared at the tactical displays. "How long do we have?" 5 years. Maybe 10. The scout ships have already entered our galaxy. The main fleet is coming behind them. Blake activated another screen that showed the full scope of the human alliance. Hundreds of species, thousands of ships, all working together. Some were primitive by Titan standards, others were more advanced. But they all had one thing in common. They had learned to survive against impossible odds. "This is why we revealed ourselves to you," Blake explained. "The Titan Empire is powerful, but you fight like individual warriors. Against what's coming, we need to fight like a unified army. Your strength combined with our adaptability could save the galaxy." "Captain," Rex stood up from his chair. "Sir, I've seen their training programs. They don't just teach humans how to fight. They teach them how to think like their enemies, how to turn disadvantages into advantages, how to win battles they should lose." Admiral Vex looked around the small command center. These humans had defeated his mighty fleet with 3 small ships. But more importantly, they had done it without destroying anyone. They had proven their point without making enemies. "What do you want from us?" he asked Blake. "Partnership," Blake replied. "Your empire has the resources and manpower we need. We have the experience and knowledge you need. Together, we might have a chance when the real enemy arrives." On the screen, they showed Admiral Vex what human training looked like. Crews practicing repairs under combat conditions. Soldiers learning to fight in zero gravity underwater and in poisonous atmospheres. Engineers building weapons from scraps and spare parts. "This is what we offer," Blake said. "Not conquest, but survival. Not submission, but cooperation. Your warriors are brave and strong. With our training, they could become unstoppable." Admiral Vex thought about his damaged fleet, his trapped warriors, and his shattered pride. Then he thought about the threats coming from beyond the galaxy. The choice was simple: adapt or die. Where do we begin? He asked. Blake smiled for the first time since the battle began. With respect, Admiral, your species has strength we need. Our species has skills you need. When we combine both, we become something neither of us could be alone. As Admiral Vex prepared to leave the human ship, he realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. The age of conquest was ending. The age of survival was about to begin. And for the first time in centuries, the Titans had found something more valuable than victory. They had found allies who could teach them how to endure.